So Harry wakes up in a deserted diner called Cafe 5 to 2. An officer named Cybil Bennett from the nearby town of Brahms appears, and after a brief conversation, she provides him with a handgun and leaves to look for help. The name tells you quite a lot about these characters. So let's talk about Cybil Bennett. I mean, what kind of cop's going to give you a gun? So the name Sybil in Greek mythology is actually given to a prophetess or fortune teller. It actually means prophetess, or we could just say prophet. The last name Bennett comes from Latin, where the word benediction or blessing is derived. So she's literally the blessed prophet. So she appears in the beginning, and she's actually, so in the archetypal character pantheon, I guess you could say, she appears as the mentor. So Sybil tells Harry she's from the next town over. The name Brahms is derived from the Hebrew name Abraham. And of course she tells him, it's dangerous out there, have you got a gun? So the prophet gives her blessing to Harry before he embarks on the hero's journey. So this is the beginning. The mentor or the prophet is always handing out some sort of either wisdom, skills, or actual weapons or tools or what have you. So never has a storyline been told as many times and in so many different ways as the hero's journey has. From the Epic of Gilgamesh to Star Wars to Harry Potter, the archetypal hero's journey is a well-recognized theme. It's a pattern which manifests itself in our daily lives. So this is something, the hero's journey very much is the human experience. It isn't just a template for storytelling. It's quite a human affair, and that's why, as an audience, we're drawn to these characters and these stories because we identify with these characters. In Silent Hill, one of the reasons we're so drawn to it is for this reason. So here's a little bit of the hero's journey so far. The call to adventure happens with Cheryl right in the beginning. The supernatural aid. Look at that. There's an astral projection of Alessa just right in the beginning of the story. Okay, this is great. So now we're actually getting into the gameplay. I love that they put this in the game. This is so crazy. In order for Harry to truly begin his journey, he needs to locate the keys for Eclipse. So the lion key is found in a cop car. Police are often associated with courage. Nearby is a large chasm, which is just what the lion needs to jump over in the story of the Wizard of Oz. Next, Harry walks over a fallen tree and finds the Scarecrow key in an empty mailbox. In the story of the Wizard of Oz, the Scarecrow suggests chopping down a tree in order to cross a valley. So actually, Harry walks across a tree to get to the Scarecrow key. There's no way that could be a coincidence. And if you think it is, well, check this out. The last one is the Woodman key, a.k.a. the Tin Woodman in the original story. It's found next to the severed head of a dog. You ever wondered why the dog's head is severed? Well, in The Wizard of Oz, the story of the Tin Woodman decapitates a pack of wolves dispatched by the Wicked Witch. Each of these keys represents one of the 3 traits that is gained in The Wizard of Oz. Okay, and this is very symbolic because Harry is going to need to unify all of these traits in himself in this game. And we'll see that in a big way. So all of these, this is intentional placement. These are intentional. I mean, obviously we know the Key of Lion, Scarecrow, Woodman is Wizard of Oz, but the way they place them, they didn't have to place them like that, but they did. We'll talk a little bit about the Wizard of Oz too, because we're not going to find a reference in Silent Hill without talking about it. So L. Frank Baum, he's the author of the Wizard of Oz. And he was a member of something called the Theosophical Society. That's an organization based on occult research. And what they do is they take comparative study of religion. They look at all the religions around the world. The entire story is an allegorical tale of the soul's journey toward enlightenment. The same concept of the yellow brick road, for example, in Buddhism is referred to as the golden path. It's an integral concept in theosophical beliefs. So heart, mind, and courage are sought after in this journey, okay? Later on in Silent Hill, the concept of the Trinity is introduced through the Floros. And the Trinity maps directly to heart, mind, and courage, by the way. So you've got the Trinity in these 3 characters. And of course, you've got the lion's courage. You've got the Scarecrow's mind. and the Tin Woodman's heart, and they're all integrated within Dorothy. So next, Harry gathers the keys. He unlocks the keys for Eclipse, the door with the 3 locks, and he finds himself at Midwich Elementary School. This is where he first sees the seal of Metatron. And the name Metatron in Greek is comprised of 2 words, meta, which means to go higher or beyond, and tron, which refers to the fundamental particles of physical reality. So beyond physicality is basically what we can think of this. So this is definitely a cue, Metatron meaning spiritual. Metatron is also an archangel in Hebrew mystical texts. So we'll get into Metatron in a big way later on. I do want to talk about this symbol because, man, I studied the crap out of this symbol, and this is one of the only symbols in the game that's really, it's kind of generic, and there's really not a lot of occult significance. I'll be honest here. Thank you for the follow, Heaven's Night TV. I appreciate that. Thanks. We know this symbol has a secret double meaning as it represents both the Order in the game and the male protagonist. This symbol is not balanced, however, and it lacks the feminine upside-down triangle. Instead, we see some rather chaotic scripting, suggesting disharmony and peril. I researched this. These. You could almost make the argument that these symbols, especially in the outer circle, look like runes, but they're not. They're not Aramaic. They're not Hebrew. There's really not. I mean, this is totally just created kind of. This is kind of generic. So the game creators just kind of put this in here. This has no significance. However, in this game is filled to the brim with significant symbols, and they're placed in very important parts of the game. So upon Harry's second meeting with Dahlia Gillespie later in the game, she even tells him this symbol is incomplete. So we know this is an incomplete symbol, and this is a symbol in chaos, right? So this isn't, besides this looking like a classic kind of sigil sort of thing or a symbol, it's kind of generic, but that's okay. So let's talk a little bit about the triangle facing up and the triangle facing down, because that's a very esoteric symbol. It's a very archetypal symbol. So here's a quick map of consciousness. So on the left side of the brain, we have the more analytical, right? This is the male, and that's symbolized by the right side up triangle. The right side up triangle could also be, so the phallus or the man's bits point upward. The lady bits, the yoni, point downward, right? So that's a sign. Another sign for the feminine. What's up, Ditheory? The moon, of course. Women are associated with the cycles of the moon, the night. What you would call an energy polarity, this yin and yang energy. And this is in Silent Hill. You guys will not believe how much attention they paid to this energy polarity. Here it is expressed in the Eastern understanding. The yang is the solar, the masculine. The yin is the lunar, the feminine. One thing you'll always see, by the way, typically with depictions like this, you'll see the masculine up and to the left and the feminine down and to the right. And of course, you notice you've got a little bit of the feminine in the masculine and a little bit of the masculine down here in the feminine. So this is an elemental mapping to humankind, and this displays the opposing yet interdependent energies. So this is a little bit of alchemy. Again, we can see the triangles facing up are going to be associated with the masculine, and the triangles facing down are going to be the feminine. So the 4 fundamental elements, of course, all of these would coalesce and be in balance and would form, a unified spirit. So this interplay between these energies, yin and yang, sun and moon, good and evil, whatever you want to call it, night and day, you can find examples of this masculine, feminine energy all around you. It's inside of you, it's outside of you, it's everywhere. And so here is where putting them into balance comes in. I love this part of the game because it's such a good introduction to the occult. So check it out. Harry's next task is to collect 2 medallions in Midwich. He obtains the gold medallion in the science room. The silver medallion is found in the music room, which is the creative, feminine aspect. It's no coincidence that he would find these coins exactly where he found them. Wait till you see this. So Harry places the gold and silver coins in the slots on the tower. Uniting the 2 universal aspects unlocks the door, allowing the hero to enter the next stage of his journey. And as he puts the coins in, he sees a golden sun, a silver moon, masculine, feminine. Hold on a second. There's far more going on here, by the way. If you think this is a coincidence, take a look at this. Having collected and placed both coins in the slots, Harry's about to enter the tower. By the way, this is an occult ceremony. So the silver moon's on the right, and the golden sun's on the left. Masculine's on the left, feminine's on the right. I'd say 99% of all of the occult stuff I've ever looked at show the masculine and feminine energies in this way. Look at this Rebis image. Re, of course, as we know, means again. It's also the old word for harmony. You've got the masculine and feminine here. And of course, look at the guy. The guy's on the left. Here's the sun. Mercury's right in the middle because Mercury's the messenger of the gods, and Mercury's kind of like the mediator. And of course, this is the woman here on the right. She's got the moon. The man is holding the compass. The woman's holding the square. The square is the more kind of the more intuitive, the more elemental, and the compass is the more refined bit, the more analytical. What are they standing on? You see this all the time, by the way. The taming your dragon kind of thing. This is what taming your dragon's about. Look at what they're inside of in this circle. This is actually a human head. And it really is a diagram of the brain in a way. But the lower part of the brain is called the R complex. We'll talk about that. So as if we didn't have enough clues about the great significance of this tower and the ceremony taking place here, Harry enters the tower and first climbs down into the earth. This is symbolic of the feminine. He's going down. He walks across the chamber, ignoring the do not enter sign, and then climbs up into the air. This is symbolic of the masculine. With this stage of the ceremony complete, the hero is set to face his biggest test yet. So this is actually a ceremony he's just embarked upon. This is a rite of passage ceremony uniting the masculine and feminine energies. So no hero's journey is ever complete without a deep descent into the unknown to slay the proverbial dragon. The bow and arrow is referenced in Silent Hill. And you got to think, well, that's interesting. Like, why not just the sword? In the book that Harry finds, hearing this, the hunter armed with a bow and arrow said, "I will kill the lizard." But the bow and arrow make another reference to the 2 opposing energies, the masculine and feminine, at play here. They must work together in order to slay the beast, as one energy is incomplete for the sacred act. So it's the balancing again. So this is actually showing us the balance. The bow is the feminine, the arrow, the masculine. They have to be unified. So Harry gets to the top of this tower. He opens the door. A cutscene follows. Harry is now, all of a sudden, he's in the other world. He takes a long look around. This is a long cutscene. He's feeling the fear. He's in the unknown. And that's what the story of slaying the dragon is actually all about. So this is the truest test of Harry's resolve at this point. This is his first test in Silent Hill. So for every hero that must slay a literal dragon, he must, in fact, slay 2, for there is a dragon inside of you. So this is something the ancients, don't ask me how they knew this, but they did. It's been demonstrated in Egypt and many mystic traditions around the world. We have 3 parts of our brain. The lowest part, the most basic part that we share with reptiles, is actually called the R complex. R stands for reptilian. The midbrain is also known as the limbic system, and that's where we get our emotional centers from. That's what all mammals have in common. And of course, the neocortex. Neo means new, and the cortex is just another term for brain, so it's the new brain. But what I want to touch on is the R complex, the reptilian part of the brain. When you feel fear, when you feel all that anxiety, all that uncertainty, that actually that arises from the R complex. And so when you're facing the unknown, you have a dragon inside of you. So remember that Rebis image when the half man, half woman are stepping on the dragon? That's what that represents. If you look at this dragon closely, you can see it's in no way giving up. But yet the dragon is under control by the balance of those energies. So the dragon's always there. We always have fear. We always have things that come up in us. Is that basic brain, fight, flight, or freeze. That doubt, all that stuff comes from the dragon. So Harry finally reaches the deepest part of Midwich Elementary, where he confronts the giant reptilian monster. This is like the ugliest creature. This is the most god-awful lizard creature ever. So in the center of the room, a figure, presumably of Alessa, is on fire as he enters the room. This represents the burning away of the old self, as the new Harry will soon emerge from the Crucible. We also know that Alessa was burned in a ceremony, and the burning is actually the first step of alchemy. We will cover that in detail. So the burning away of the old self, or calcination, is the first of those 7 steps of alchemy, and these are all woven deeply into the story of Silent Hill. What happens right after Harry vanquishes the dragon? Alessa Gillespie appears. After the dragon is slain, in most typical stories, the hero gets the treasure. The hero gets the girl. The treasure could symbolically mean, I faced my fear, and I'm a better person for it. And that's the treasure. That's the metaphysical treasure. That's the esoteric or spiritual alchemy at work there. So the name Alessa is Greek, which means defender. And Gillespie is derived from the Gaelic word by the way of Latin, and it means bishop's servant, which is interesting since we know Alessa is being used by the order. In Silent Hill canon, it's believed that Alessa is creating these events from her psyche, and she's helping our hero along on his journey. It's almost as if Alessa, she's bringing Harry through maybe her experiences, but at the same time, she's bringing him through the steps of alchemy so that he will have made this journey through each of the 7 steps and will have he will have taken his base self and through all of the steps of alchemy transmuted that into, I don't know if you could say an enlightened being or maybe just a higher self. So she's bringing him through on this journey, this metaphysical journey in the unconscious to reach the higher self. So having conquered his dragon in the other world, or the unconscious, remember the other world in Silent Hill really does mean the unconscious, Harry emerges anew and finds himself back in the ordinary world. He hears church bells, which beckon him to move on. And of course, church bells are very significant of clearing of the spirit, of the air, cleansing. That's what the church bells are typically signify. Harry, at this point, has graduated from elementary school in the allegorical sense and is now ready for his next stage on the journey. It's kind of funny, like his very first trial is at an elementary school. It's like the very, very basic stuff. He passed the test with the dragon. He faced his fear. Now he's ready to move on.